Good afternoon to all of you, esteemed administrators, executors, doctors, and so many professionals from the healthcare industry. Very, very impressive seminar, first, I would say, in a very topic that's not usually discussed so widely, but it's so pertinent and so important to be discussed, especially amongst policymakers and decision makers. Very important to get the attention to the healthcare field per se in the country. So talking about that, today's topic is about whether we should adopt EPC and how beneficial is EPC when compared with the fragmented approach that is actually being widely followed today in the construction of hospitals across the country. So just a broad overview of the hospital sector and the healthcare sector in India. We have made great strides in the hospital and the healthcare industry, I would say, over the last 2 decades or so. From the government of India, we've had various initiatives. One is the path-breaking Ayushman Bharat program, and all of you doctors and hospital owners here must say how much of it is actually being implemented in your hospitals. But it has had wide reach, and we've also had the Jan Arogya Kendras distributing generic medicines at subsidized costs, and various measures taken, outreach measures taken by the government. But 80% of hospitals and the healthcare still lies in the hands of the very able private sector. But the government of the day is doing its bit. But what more can the government do? Because challenges are, facing the government in terms of our norms. If you say we have about 1.5 hospital beds per 1,000, but the norm of, as per WHO, is 3 per 1,000, which means about 3.5 million hospital beds by 2030, entailing an expenditure of about 10 lakh crore. So that's the kind of challenge that's facing the government and the private sector today in terms of hospital and healthcare. If you look at the larger picture of the country and how the healthcare is actually being accessed by the last mile in our country. So coming back to the very micro topic of whether it should be EPC or whether it should be a fragmented model, because if you see EPC as per studies, it delivers about 30% faster delivery times, and there's also assurance of quality globally, worldwide. It's been time-tested process that it's ensuring timely delivery, it's ensuring quality, it's ensuring outcomes in the construction of hospitals. But in India, still, there's a long way to go in terms of adoption of EPC. So for that, we have our stalwarts here, Pankaj Vatsa from Mott MacDonald, who's actually overseeing EPC programs across the district hospitals of Assam. Then we have architect Nithyanand Natarajan, who is from L&T, a name that is synonymous with the construction industry in India since the time we were born, at least I was born. We've heard L&T to be the name that's actually representing construction in India. And he has also been, the architect for very, very large-scale hospitals, like a 4,000-bedded hospital in Patna, right? And then we have from the army itself, Colonel Prasanna Joshi. Very warm welcome to all of you. Colonel Joshi has been responsible for construction of large military hospitals. In Pune, 1,000-bedded military hospital is to your credit. So we have, we have representation from the consulting industry. We have representation from the execution part of the story, and we also have from the actual micro-level construction field of from the L&T. So without much ado, let's begin the discussion. So we'll start with the colonel, who's also, the part of the entire army which is protecting our borders so tirelessly. So So on the a particular topic of EPC, so what do you think in your experience from the construction of large military hospitals, EPC versus a fragmented approach? Why do like large-scale government hospitals like AIIMS, they do go for EPC and there's no challenge there. But in terms of the private hospitals, there is a lot of resistance to adopting EPC practices. So would you want to throw some light from your experience?
Thank you, ma'am. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. V.K. Desai, sir, for allowing me to speak in this August forum. And coming back to the question, sir, generally, as per this EPC model, this model is mainly all the things in engineering, procurement, and constructions are controlled by the single firm. And single point accountability is the important aspect that is generally considered. And all the accountability lies with the one single firm, and that looks after the so many projects and so many things at one time, so that the projects are completed on time, and the decisions, planning, and all these decisions are taken on the right time. So that's why the projects, and particularly in the government or in armed forces or military, they are time bound. That has to be completed on time bound manner, and the cost efficiency and the work that is also a part which should be considered. So mostly because of that, and minimal disruption from the existing. If we are going for a project on an EPC background, and a project is happening on a completely brownfield project where the actually hospital is working. So if the complete project is given on an EPC basis, that project will complete and in an efficient manner, and so that's why the government organizations like AIIMS and all, they are planning for the EPC project, what I can say.
Right. Some, highlights from your construction experience at the 1,000-bedded military hospital.
Yes, sure, ma'am. Basically, I was posted in a command hospital, Pune, which is a 1,000-bedded hospital. That project initially, it was not a EPC project. Like in armed forces, we have a project. First of all, the planning. But that planning is done by the military engineering services. We have a separate engineering department which is there that looks after the project, and they give the project basically is split into the 2-3 parts, and that is the reason that projects generally get delayed. And that initially the planning, it's happened. They give after the project is finalized, the consultancy, the contracts and designs, and architectural designs, they are designed and are formed by the particular XYZ firm, and they are again scrutinized by our engineers. And then once these are finalized, finally the construction and everything, that procurement part, that second part and third part of the EPC, that is handled by the third firm. And that is a main gap in the system. But what it was happened in the project in the Pune, that the contractors actually didn't complete the projects on time, and that leads to the delayed project and the delayed completion. Ultimately, the older building, the building which was old vintage building that the hospital care was not able to, but that basically the new hospital building which was commissioned earlier. And the cost also, one of the important factor that one of the reason that that was not given to that cost escalation. The cost which was sanctioned for that project has escalated, but the contractor initially who had signed the contract for the particular amount, that over the period of next 5-10 years, that 5 years, I will say, that has changed, and that he has left the project and gone. That is the reason that if the project or any contract has been given to the particular firm on an EPC basis, so he is the whole and sole responsible, and he will be able to complete the project on time.
Absolutely. So live case study of how, by not implementing EPC, how you went wrong and what were the shortcomings of that execution. So EPC definitely delivers on the cost and efficiency is what you said, right? In terms of fast tracking construction, also EPC helps. And accountability, most importantly, there's a one person or one firm accountability in terms of turnkey execution. So Nithyanand ji, coming to you, you've also been responsible for a very large execution execution of 4,000-bedded hospital in Patna. So was that on EPC and what were your experiences from that construction?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Dr. Vivek Desai and team for giving me this opportunity. Small correction, it is not 4,000, it is 5,462 beds. So it's Asia's second largest hospital, what they say in the internet and everything. So we were proud to actually take this project on EPC. I would maybe after a tenure of around 3 years into this project, I would definitely see not any other model would have actually taken this project forward. So this project, though the tender was like a normal project, so the consultant usually will be given a very short duration for designing whatever scale of the project. So the same way the consultants were given 3 months for the design, and then they came out with the DBR, and the tender was out, and then we started bidding for the project. So as prudent contractors, we start doing this exercise of learning the site, how the site logistics work. Because this being a brownfield project, actually it's a compact 48 acres, to just give a short glimpse of how the project is. It's a very compact project of 48 acres, existing in the existing Rajpath, which is the most busiest road in the Patna, I can say. And on the other side, you have the Ganga River, which is actually waiting to come inside the site. So that kind of a scenario will be there. And then the existing around 3,000 beds were actually running and in operation. And the entire site was developed in a very inorganic manner. So we made a detailed study of the entire facility, and then obviously the rerouting, everything was there in the scope. So including the medical equipment. So this was a project where I can say a comprehensive EPC, not only limiting to architecture, civil and MEP, but including the medical equipments, interiors, whatever not. And you have the pneumatic systems, you have the automatic waste laundry systems, robotic OTs, everything is there in the project. So a detailed study was necessary within the short duration of around 2 months, what we got for the bidding process. And we raised thousands of queries, they were answered, and then we took it forward. But then when we actually went into the project for execution to get a GFC drawing signed off, actually we were in a shock. So because the basic requirements of the end users were not taken care. So that was a great shock for us, and then they started again giving a lot of comments. You know, the HODs of various departments have their own requirements. So everything was sorted out thanks to the in-house design team. People were able to manage them and then get the things online. As at least in the last 2 months, I think we have inaugurated this facility. The first phase of the project is inaugurated with 1,100 beds in operation now. The facility also had a unique requirement of having the design done for a seismic zone 5. So we started employing the base isolators also in it. So every technology was there. So it's actually operating a live patient with a small anesthesia at one end, and then the patient is live seeing the operation. So that's how the entire site is. So it's so complex. And then this EPC, if not, it would have been work.
Great. So a live experience of how EPC actually helped you deliver. So were there any specific, technological models that you used for execution which ensured your timely delivery?
As our friends were saying, BIM model, obviously it helped us a lot in doing the clash analysis before we actually stepped into the site. The detailed supply chain management. So these kind of projects require vast supply chain, because the base isolators have to come from US. Those were friction pendulum, the first of its kind, which was used in India. So usually we use the lead rubber bearing seismic isolators in Assam and other areas. So this was a different kind of base isolator as such. And then we were even allowed to use steel structures. For one of the hostel buildings, we started using the steel to complete it just before time, and then we handed it over to them. Students were very happy, and then in the bargain, I could get the playground to put our facilities. So that was one of the trade-off we did. And it went on. So whatever technologies we can say in terms of supply chain, in terms of design, and in terms of execution. So execution was really a hell a lot of problems, because the patients will be there, And you can see the site people used to tell me that every morning they used to see dead bodies carried across the road where the work is going on. So the mood of the people there, the employers there, the students there, everything is like different. So it was a challenging atmosphere, I can say.
Great, wonderful. So my next question, third round was about disaster resilient infrastructure, but you've already answered it now. So to Pankaj Vatshi, so about your experience, you had a unique experience of monitoring district hospital constructions in Assam. So did you, it was particularly, of course, on using EPC mode. So how did that help in that execution in rural areas in Assam?
So good afternoon, everyone. So before I answer your question, let me give you a bit of a context of this project. So this project is, as part of the National Health Mission, the government of Assam is upgrading their physical infrastructure of the hospitals in a primary, secondary, tertiary model, so that healthcare is available to the citizen even in the rural areas. Not everybody need to run to Guwahati, not everybody need to run to AIIMS Delhi. So with this context, this project is funded by World Bank, and we are helping the client to build around 10 hospitals, ranging from 100 beds to 200 beds hospitals. This project is in early stages. Construction has recently started. However, I think there were multiple reasons I can think of why this project is working on EPC model. The number one reason is the client itself has very low managerial bandwidth. Their organization structure is very small. And over and above that, the complexity is the people having hospital construction experiences far lesser. So then naturally, that's where they structured this model. And we, as MOTMAC and HOSMAC, came in and became the PMC for this project. Number two, I think since, as I said, it's a World Bank funded project, budget is there is under loan, and there are time bound, you have to utilize this budget. So what the client has done using this EPC, at least the cost is frozen now. Until and unless somebody comes up with some major changes, by and large the cost is fixed now. So that's predictability is there. Another important point is, as I said, is that locations are all spread out. So in the EPC contractor, including the regulatory approvals, so the risk automatically get transferred to the EPC. So he's taking care of all that stuff. So this way they are protecting themselves. And what helps the contractor is, I think so, and as my colleagues are also saying, the design is with them. The dispute starts between the design consultants and the contractor is when the pace is not matching. Now it is all single point. They are responsible. They are getting the design done through their own teams. So I think all these parameters are helping the client and helping this project under EPC.
So the various hospitals, you said there are about 10 hospitals, right? So it's one EPC contractor for all the 10 or?
No, they are all.
Each are different, okay.
So in Assam, actually, both the models exist.
Okay.
Under ACCF, 17 hospitals are being built under almost similar model, where L&T has been appointed to take care of everything. So we are.
Right, so that was round one. So we've understood clearly that EPC definitely delivers on cost, time and efficiency. There is no argument on that. EPC versus fragmented, EPC wins the case. So second round, we'll focus on whether the quality is ensured. Is it better quality under EPC? And also a point that comes to my mind now is whether the risk, when we say risk is transferred to the EPC, there is also greater risk because you're just depending on one contractor and not many. So if that company fails, then the entire project is doomed. So that, maybe you can throw some light on that aspect, starting from Prasannaji.
The quality, basically, the part, it has to be, because the hospital, if I say for the hospital point of view, the buildings are very technical, and all the areas like critical care areas like ICU and OT, as well as CSSD, as well as, or I can say a labor room, where proper quality and the technicality has to be maintained. And if it is conveyed to the contractor during the project or at the planning stage, and if it is executed properly, so then it will be a complete or a proper execution of a project that is possible through any contract. If it is provided, it should be a EPC based or a normal contract. But the quality parameters has to be included as per the regulatory as well as mandate. What are the government mandate and what are the required from the clinician point of view, what as well as for the hospital, being a hospital as a where there are the chances of patients infection control, and that parameter has to be considered while considering the quality.
In terms of risk, we're talking about risk, whether risk is great, we said risk is transferred to the EPC contractor, but is it less, it's kind of consolidated in one EPC contractor, whereas when you have several fragmented consultants and contractors, it's risk is spread.
Risk is definitely, definitely the risk will be the more. If the single contract is there, then that will definitely benefit the user organization, where the particularly to develop the project on time without any risk, or quality will be maintained.
Sure. So, Nithyanand, do you also validate that, or what? But is it, the trade-off is higher when we say was cost, time, and efficiency delivers, but in terms of risk, there is still a greater risk because you're depending on just one single contractor.
The risk is actually very huge if there is a single contractor, but then, of course, the experience comes into play. The company setup as well as the supply chain management, actually that gives the benefit to the contractor actually. So even one vendor fails, the other vendor has to be in the backup. So there is no chances I can take in any of these projects because everything is time bound. And nowadays the government projects are becoming more time bound rather than the private institutions, I can say, because we are doing a lot of projects with government and they are behind us. Even the IAS secretaries are behind us in every meeting. They are just pushing things so that they get the facility on time to the needy. So that's how things work. But then as we talk about, I rate hospital as one of the complex buildings in the entire building sectors as such. Though many say airport is one of the complex building, but then when we come into the MEP coordination, we were doing only architecture, civil, and MEPF coordination. But then now you have MGPS, so that is coming to picture. Obviously, in the EPC contracts, you have pneumatic system, you have the automatic waste laundry system coming into picture, you have robotic pharmacies, robotic laboratories, robotic OTs, whatever you say. So the morning somebody said it's becoming 1/4 of the, or half of the hospital cost is being built into the MEPF. So this, the coordination between these new specialized requirements for the hospital becoming very, very tough. So maintaining quality, delivering it on time is actually a tremendous task. Maybe as I said, the experience of the contractors definitely play a big role in this.
Right, definitely. So, Pankaj, I would like to know, like EPC, yes, of course, it's much, from the client's perspective, the risk is, it's easier for them because they depend on L&T or any one particular large EPC contractors. But maybe there is not enough of such large scale, good quality EPC construction firms in the country. That is one perhaps challenge. And in terms of coming back to the earlier question of quality, does EPC necessarily ensure better quality, or it's more about the specifications and the templates that we use?
So I think you are right that way. So EPC or any other model, success of it depends on the people who are running it. That is one. And second, to have a success in the EPC require a solid work upfront. Have you clearly defined the functional requirement of the hospital, number of beds, OTs, so on and so forth, technical specifications, and as he also pointed out, how much work you have done at the feed stage, which is your design basis report. Because all these things have not handled properly, an EPC contractor will come on board with fixed price and then it ultimately results in changes and delays and so on and so forth. In fact, the site readiness. I can share an example. It's obviously not a hospital, but client had selected a site, given it to a contractor. Nobody had studied on the approach road of it. So when the contractor is on ground, he's finding it difficult to take the material because the road was partly private and partly with PWD. Dispute starts. Client says to the contractor, you have confirmed in the contract that you have seen the site before bidding, so it is your responsibility. And obviously contractor can't, so things like this. So the more better you are prepared in advance in all these parameters, more chances of a success of EPC. It can happen with other fragmented contracts that you can make, there's still more flexibility in making of changes and so on and so forth. But in EPC, everything has a cost because they will demand for any change, they will ask for a price.
Right. So specifically when it comes to administrative service officers and all, the bandwidth would be very limited to actually, coordinate so many fragmented consultants and contractors. And that way, definitely EPC is the answer for that. So now we move to the third round, which is going to focus on disaster resilient construction and whether EPC and disaster resilient are, going hand in hand, or does EPC, giving it to an EPC contractor, does it also ensure that we can also deliver better on disaster resilient infrastructure, which is so important? Like we see the recent wars, the hospitals were affected, so many hospitals in Ukraine and Gaza war destroyed. So these are lifelines being destroyed. So it's very important to have disaster resilient constructions for hospitals. So EPC construction would definitely ensure, would help us in, delivering on that better?
Yeah, definitely. The EPC construction will definitely benefit the hospitals if we are built up with the EPC model. As you told, if we consider the recent war scenario which happened with India as well as with the Ukraine-Gaza war, which happened, the main lessons learned that we should be taking that the requirement of underground hospitals or underground hospital or healthcare setup, which is lacking in most of the healthcare sector in India. If we see, there are very less, I will say there is no any civil hospital in India which is having underground setup. Although the armed forces, they have some hospitals at the LOC or nearby border areas in Jammu and Kashmir where there are hospitals with an underground structure. But they are few, they are limited. From the recent war of Sindoor, the few near the border, there were bunkers were created. There were around 9,000 bunkers were created near the LOC. But they are not enough, if we say, even the orders were there around to more than the bunkers. So recently, the lessons were learned during this war, and the government of J&K, recently they have proposed, they will be developing a full-fledged trauma center and accident emergency center in a district Punch, considering this scenario, which will be a completely underground structure. And definitely, if they go for the EPC model, so that will be definitely beneficial for our country. So that if we consider this model as EPC, because the hospitals are nowadays a soft target, or they are main target if we see during the recent war scenario. And if the healthcare is affected and the countries and that the workforce, the armed forces, the working soldiers, they are affected. And this we have seen recently during our of Sindoor as well as during the Ukraine-Gaza war. They have the hospital, but the hospital, if they are targeted, and the secondary standby hospital is not there. Particularly the hospital, if they are underground, if they have a system which is safety and they are blast proof or some resilient hospitals are developed, they are definitely that country will be better worth with.
So yeah, in terms of blast proof, is what was coming to my mind. So I didn't want to sound like a layman if I ask this question, whether there are blast proof technologies in construction. That is one. And the second is you maybe throw some more light on how you made Patna Hospital resilient in infrastructure there.
Of course, blast proof things can be done, but it has its own cost. So even the glass, we all know that it is blast proof glasses are there, bulletproof glasses are there. The entire, if a car can be made blast proof and bulletproof, of course the buildings can be done. So as Prasanna sir was saying, those are things which can be done only in the bunkers, not in the superstructure part. So, of course, from the superstructure point of view, I can say disaster will be addressed in only mainly the seismic part. So, I think the national guidelines are being developed as a national disaster management guidelines are going to come up. So actually, I went through the entire NDMA clauses and other things. Actually, we have done one of the building in Odisha. It's a PG institute. What we've done, it's fully complied of NDMA guidelines. But then the NDMA guidelines cannot be applied to the entire hospital is what I found out. Because from the structural point of view, yes, the NDMA works. Because we can create shear walls, we can create base isolators, we can bulletproof the building in terms of glazings or whatever it is, but then it doesn't work. The entire NDMA, if you read, the MEP systems have to be seismic proof. The cladding, which we usually do on all the building facade and the interiors, they are not allowing that. The false ceiling, they don't allow. Anything which is stuck to the ceiling, they are not allowing to put it. So, of course, the NDMA guidelines, they are threatening us that it will be implemented in the upcoming NBC guidelines. But then I think from the field, from the industry, I think many people have to go through the guidelines and then give them proper feedback. So from our side also, we are representing that the NDMA doesn't work holistically. If I say I can have the NDMA certification for only the structure part, but not for the other areas. So we have to think more about that. Actually, the nation is developing some codes and standards which are very, democratic. As morning people were saying, each city has its own rules. So it's too democratic that I cannot apply a standard rule everywhere. NBC itself, people say it is a guideline and not a norm to be followed. So whenever I stress for a pedestrian ramp or emergency ramp in a hospital, that doesn't seems to be going through in many of the states. For example, I think Mumbai doesn't have a proper code to put in the ramp in place. They're saying ramp can be avoided. But whereas it is mandatory in Chennai and Delhi, of course. So this is where actually the difference of opinion and the design itself gets mixed up. So holistically, this has to be framed, and then a proper disaster management guideline has to be put in place.
Sure. You are always answering ahead of time. I think intuitively guessing what I'm going to ask next. But next question was about what kind of policy reforms can be there. But in terms of like the ramp that you mentioned, I think those can come as an enforcement because, it's for the disabled friendly infrastructure, something that our country is still lagging behind in all, not only hospitals, but a hospital is so very important to have ramps and all that. But how can any particular state not agree to that condition? That's really bad. I think that way we should have the national guidelines actually enforcing that, very mandatorily. Anyway, coming to Pankajji, about your, experience in Assam. So Assam is definitely flood prone. So in your constructions, did you actually do any buildings which were resilient or could withstand the floods situation?
So it's not only flood prone, there's a earthquake prone seismic zone. So there also, during the design, precautions have been taken, base isolators, what are solutions are normally there. Site selection is important. So where you are placing your project, So rest I concur because guidelines are still evolving. So as from the design perspective, whatever the precautionary measures can be done from even the local material selection, wherever it can help. So I think the moot question will be that disasters as such, the climate change is also a reality. More and more we'll see the weather pattern changes. So sustainability has to be put as a centerpiece while we are designing or conceiving our projects. Going forward, I think that's going to be the key.
Right, definitely. ESG in EPC, I think that's also a very important aspect. So the last round is just a rapid fire in terms of one policy reform that you would like to bring about from the Government of India's side to actually facilitate or encourage EPC construction going forward, starting from Prasanna ji.
I didn't get what policy?
Any kind of reform that you want the government to take, like he mentioned about the national guidelines, so something that comes to your mind which would actually ensure that EPC is the way forward for construction, at least large-scale projects.
Yeah, considering the scenario and time-bound projects, the project, if they have to run on a time-bound manner, the government has to look after the projects on a EPC basis to ensure the quality as well as the timely delivery of the project, as well as considering the risk factor involved in the project as well as the quality of work. So definitely the project has to be on a EPC basis, or a project that can be fast-tracked through a EPC model.
Sure, okay.
And armed forces also are recently, they are looking forward for the projects on a EPC model.
Right, okay.
Policy reform, I would say, the selection of the contractor, actually basically when you see EPC lies in the, as he said, responsibility, the entire responsibility is being taken by the contractor. If that is the case, then the selection of the contractor should be in a very, very transparent mode. The thing is, there are new methods which have come into picture. We call it as QBS and QCBS,
right,
where QBS is quality-based selection. So obviously the name quality is there. So you need to evaluate the vendor on their credentials of the past experience of the projects handled, the volume of the project, the intricacies of the project. So if it is based on that, obviously we will get definitely quality products on time and with quality. That's what I can say. Obviously, the next step, we are all pushing towards QCBS, where quality and cost-based selection leave out this L1 concept. It's all,
right,
it's all the myth that L1 contractor gets a project and then move ahead. But then L1 contractors, in many cases, we have seen they are failing because of many circumstances. It is not because of their ability, I will say. Many circumstances are there which make them fail. The environment makes them fail. So let's not get into this L1 concept anymore. I'm pushing everywhere this QCBS concept. Let's hope some reform comes into picture.
Right. I think the government is largely moving towards 2-bid and QCBS. With the World Bank funding more and more projects for the country, I think it's becoming the norm. What about Pankajji? What are your views on what policy reform can be ensured so that the EPC becomes the norm, at least after a certain scale of cost, maybe we can ensure that EPC is the norm.
See, look, I think government is fairly used to EPC.
Right.
So you look at the large turnkey
Private
projects.
sector is what, yeah.
It's a private sector. And it's just a guess probably. Because EPC lump sum makes it very rigid.
Okay.
So maybe it's just a thought, if you can split the EPC even into two parts.
Okay.
What the idea is that when the project preparatory phase is on, can you get the EPC in? The remuneration model can be cost plus or whatever, so that he's part of the entire story when DBR is being framed, design, functional requirements are being fixed, and then had the second part, which is the execution and the detailed design phase.
Right.
And there it can be a lump sum. So it's just an idea, I don't know.
Sure. Okay. So a lot of intricate details also we've got in terms of what can be pushed into the guidelines. Largely from the discussion, what we understand is EPC definitely delivers on cost, time, efficiency, quality, and even in ensuring disaster resilient technologies. For all of this, EPC is the answer to construction of at least large scale projects. So maybe going forward from this recommendation from this session could be that after a certain scale and size of project, EPC should be the mandatory way forward for construction. So thank you all of you esteemed panelists, and it was a great relearning for me. I've gone away from my civil engineering and architecture into policy, but this was a revision for me of all construction technologies, and I hope all of you found it as educative and insightful as I did. Thank you so much.